Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name's Dave, and this episode 3841 and today's date is February 16th, 2026. And the title of the episode is Conspiracy No More, Biden Central Bank Faked the Numbers, Playbook Known, Countered. Now, you know what's very interesting? If you're like me and you're getting to that age where your body just feels sluggish and off all the time, then listen up. Because Dr. Josh explains that most of the time, this is caused by clogged liver. You probably already heard about how important your liver is for detoxification, digestion, and energy levels. But here's the thing. Most people have no idea how clogged and overburdened the liver actually is. Eating processed food, drink, and even stress, these things can take a toll, leaving your liver clogged. And it's important not to let this go unchecked because your liver is the most important organ in your body, being responsible for the proper function of nearly every system in your body, from digestion to metabolism to detoxification. Essentially, a healthy liver equals a healthy you. That's why Dr. Josh, a practicing doctor with over 25 years medical experience, formulated a special liver supplement called Ultra Liver that acts like a deep cleanse for your entire body. He told me that Ultra Liver just crossed over 500,000 bottles sold and has received thousands of 5-star reviews from happy customers and patients. So say goodbye to chronic fatigue, bloating, and skin, and say hello to renewed energy, clear thinking, and a body that is operating 100% again. And this is powerful stuff. You're not going to get results like this from any random liver supplement. Dr. Josh put his 25 plus years of experience into Ultra Liver to make sure that it actually does what it's supposed to. So if you're ready to unclog your liver and flush the dangerous toxins that are sapping your energy and preventing you from losing weight, just go to tryultraliver.com/X22 to get your hands on Ultra Liver today. By the way, it's your lucky day because Dr. Josh is running a summer sale where you can get up to 50% off Ultra Liver for a limited time. But this special offer is only available through our link for our audience. The link is right below this video in the description box. Do yourself a favor and go click it and take back control of your liver health today. That is tryultraliver.com/X22. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the privatized central bank, the World Economic Forum, you can see it's no longer a conspiracy. When Biden/Obama was in office, what did they do? They set up the entire economic system to implode on itself. Now, the mission was the Great Reset. And while they were doing this, they pretty much fudged the numbers. Because once again, if you're making the economy fall apart, you can't tell people, hey, by the way, we're destroying the economy. So what do you got to do? You got to fake the numbers to convince people that the economy is doing well. Meanwhile, in the background, what are you doing? You're destroying the economy. Actually, if you go back to 2008, this is exactly what they did prior to 2008. What happened? The Fed, they started to raise rates. The economy hit a tipping point, and then they started to drop them. Then we had Bernanke come out telling us that they're not forecasting any type of recession anytime soon. The economy looks pretty darn good, and everything's going to be fine. During that same year, what happened? The entire economic system fell apart, and we entered into a deep recession. Same thing was going to happen this time around. Biden/Obama, the Fed, the deep state players, they were convincing you that the economy was doing great, even though fuel prices were going up, inflation was going up, job numbers were fake, GDP numbers were fake. They were all fake. They were all made up. But they had to convince you that the economy was doing well, so they faked those numbers. In the meantime, in the background, what was happening? The entire system was completely imploding on itself because they were planning on what? The Great Reset. They mentioned this back in March or April of 2020, and this was their entire mission. Enter Trump. Trump came onto the scene, and he was running for re-election, and they realized, holy crap, he's going to win because there's no way to stop him because the people were behind him, and they pretty much set up the entire economic system to fail. They already knew this. This is why Biden says we're handing off a very strong economy, even though the economic system was one gigantic illusion. Trump came into office. He started the tariff system, and he started to realize the numbers that they've been reporting on are completely made up. This is why he removed those individuals within the BLS. This is why he's going back and revising and basically recalculating all the numbers because, once again, they're fake. Just like the Green New Scam, global warming, climate change. Everything that they've told us is a complete and utter lie. Even going all the way back to 1913 when the Federal Reserve was brought into existence for the third time in this country. The whole thing is one gigantic lie, and it looks like Scott Bessent from the Treasury might be moving the case against Powell out of the DOJ and into the Senate Banking Committee. And there's a reason why he's doing that. We'll be talking about that in just a sec. But you could see, as of right now, California, they're following in the footsteps of the Green New scam, just like Germany is doing the same thing. So that's the template out in Germany. California is the template here in the United States. And the rest of the states in this country, a lot of the red states, I should say, they're doing the opposite of what California is doing. And California right now is hurting quite a bit. You can see a lot of businesses are moving out of the state. People are moving out of the state. They have to increase their taxes because, once again, their entire system was one gigantic money laundering system. They're following the Green New scam, destroying the energy production. And companies, people, they're seeing the writing on the wall, and they just say, you know something? We're not staying here while you take all of our money. And that's what they're going to do in the end. They're going to take everything that the people have just to keep their criminal system alive. And you can see already that California is having a very difficult time with gasoline. Remember, they've been pushing the Green New scam. Steve Guest put this out, and he's referring to an article from Bloomberg, and it says, gasoline-starved California is turning to fuel from the Bahamas. Steve Guest says California is cooked. Gasoline-starved California is turning to fuel from the Bahamas. U.S. supplies of gasoline are being shipped out of the country to travel thousands of miles via the Bahamas before finally ending up in California, a state battling shrinking fuel-making capacity and high pump prices. Shipments on the route are increasing. California imported more gasoline in November than ever before, with more than 40% coming from the Bahamas. What a colossal disaster on Gavin Newsom's watch. Absolutely. And think about what they're doing right now. They used to produce the gas there, and now those companies are moving out of California, and they have to import the fuel. Isn't this what Germany did? Didn't they shut down the nuclear plants, the coal-fired plants, and they had to import energy from other places because they went to wind power? It looks like California is doing the same exact thing, which means electricity costs are going to skyrocket now. So keep watching California. It's going to be very, very interesting in the end. And the other thing that's very interesting is that Newsom signed a memorandum of understanding in London with the UK Energy Secretary Ed Miliband, pledging closer cooperation on clean energy technologies, including offshore wind development. The agreement expands access for British firms, including Octopus Energy, to California's markets and deepens collaboration between research institutions on both sides of the Atlantic. Under the pact, both California and the UK reaffirmed their commitment to pursuing net zero emissions targets under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. The Trump administration withdrew the United States from the UNFCCC earlier this year. So let's see. California is doing the opposite of what Trump is doing, which means California is going to implode on itself. So basically, California is trying to convince everyone they're going to show the world how they can turn everything around and show innovation and how we're going to fight net zero climate action and we're going to make people's lives better, which means California is going to destroy itself in the end. That's what it means. And Trump, he pretty much blasted California Governor Newsom with his newly signed Clean Energy Pact with the United Kingdom, calling the agreement inappropriate and warning British officials against partnering with Democratic governor. In a brief interview following Newsom's London trip, Trump sharply criticized both governor and the deal itself. The UK's got enough trouble without getting involved with Gavin Newsom. Gavin is a loser, he says. Everything he touched turns to garbage. His state has gone to hell, and his environmental work is a disaster. Trump also said it was inappropriate for Newsom to strike such agreements and inappropriate for them to deal with him. And he's absolutely right. But you know what? Sometimes you got to show the people. Sometimes people must see this firsthand. And as it gets worse in California, and they are going after people's savings, checking accounts, and everything else, their unrealized gains, because that's really what's going to happen in the end, people are going to start to realize, we can't live here anymore. Businesses are already seeing it. People are seeing it. People are fleeing California right now. They see the writing on the wall, and it's just going to get worse and worse as time goes on. But you can see what Trump's mission is. He's bringing all the manufacturers back to this country, creating the energy so we can manufacture. This is why he's removed us from the Paris Climate Accord, all the climate agendas and everything else, Because, again, that's not the approach. That's not the direction that we need to head in. We need to head in a direction where we have real energy to produce. Hey, you know what's interesting? We've all seen the headlines about those miracle weight loss shots, but the 2026 data is officially in, and it's a wake-up call. A major analysis revealed that once people stop the injections, they regain an average of 60% of their weight within a year. Even worse, most of the gain is pure fat, but the muscle they lost stays gone, leaving them with a crashed metabolism and a body that's functionally older than when they started. That's why I'm obsessed with today's sponsor, GLP-1 Elevate. Instead of using needles to override my system, it uses clinically studied plant-based ingredients like metabolate to help my body naturally boost its own hunger control signals. I get the same fullness and fewer cravings, but without the scary side effects or the metabolic rebound. It supports my goals while protecting my muscles so I can actually keep the results for good. To celebrate Valentine's Day, get 50% off GLP-1 Elevate at trimwithx22.com. Every order includes a complete support bundle with a free VIP coaching for life, a 60-day money-back guarantee, and free express shipping on subscriptions. Head over to trimwithx22.com now to claim your 50% discount before it expires, or just click the link in the description. And manufacture goods. And this is what Trump is doing, which is going to bring jobs back to this country. And what's very interesting is that Trump right now is floating the idea of opening the U.S. market to Chinese cars so long as they're made in the U.S. Think about why he's saying this. He's not saying let's import the cars. He's saying we can build them here, just like Japan is building their cars here, just like Germany is building their cars here. Why? It creates a lot of jobs. And when they're created here, they're cheaper and they can be exported to other countries. Peter Sayong put this out and said, and this is what Trump says, if they want to come in and build the plant and hire you and hire your friends and your neighbors, that's great. I love that. Trump's logic is the point of tariffs is jobs, not fluffing GM shareholders, paying Mexicans to build American cars. And that's what he's doing. He's creating jobs. And yes, we're going to have other manufacturers manufacture in this country, just like China has manufacturers from all different countries in China. Trump is setting up the same exact thing. So yes, we're going to have German manufacturers. We're going to have Japanese manufacturers. We're going to have Chinese manufacturers here in this country building products, which means we're going to have the jobs here in this country. Because what is Trump doing? He's continually lowering the energy costs, removing the regulations, bringing in investments. And this is all about jobs. The more jobs you have, the better your economy. The more you manufacture, more jobs you make. And this is what Trump's mission is right now. Remember, the deep state, the central bankers, they spent years in moving the manufacturers and the jobs out of this country. Trump is going to ramp this up within 4 years, and it's going to be absolutely incredible. But first, he has to completely and utterly fix the fake job numbers that were created under the Biden/Obama central bank deep state time in the White House. And they did this on purpose because you have to remember their entire plan was to do what? It was to down the economy. And you have to remember, they had to keep the illusion alive. They couldn't say, hey, by the way, we're destroying the economy. We're going to make fuel go up to $10 a gallon. We're going to make inflation go up to 27%. We're going to destroy everything in this country. They couldn't tell people that. So what did they do? They do it behind the scenes, and they fake the numbers. Why do you think they lied about inflation? Why do you think they lied about fuel costs? Why do you think they lied about the Inflation Reduction Act? The whole thing's one gigantic lie. They were setting up the country to fail. But when they realized that they couldn't cheat in the election and the people wanted Trump and we were able to override the rigged system, they handed Trump this decrepit recession of an economy, which was teetering on a depression. And now people are starting to realize that that's exactly what happened. It's not a conspiracy anymore. Everything was fake. The Cobicio letter on X put this out and said, U.S. job numbers were revised down by negative 1 million jobs in 2025, the largest annual revision in at least 20 years. This follows downward revisions of minus 818,000 in 2024 and minus 306,000 in 2023. In total, 2.1 million jobs have been revised out of initially reported data over the last 3 years. Since 2019, minus 2.5 million jobs have been erased from official data, with negative revisions occurring in 6 of the last 7 years. By comparison, 2009 to 2010, combined downward revisions were roughly 1.2 million. What is happening with the U.S. labor market? Well, is anything happening to the labor market, or was it always happening to the labor market? Well, this is what the deep state set up. This is what the central bankers, Biden/Obama, set up for the Great Reset. Joseph Toomey says it's not American labor market data. It's just the payroll survey data of non-farm payrolls. It's corrupted beyond repair. The overestimated comes primarily from the BLS reliance on its meritless birth-death model that attempts to estimate the employment impact of new business open versus businesses closed. More than half of reported CES new jobs are spreadsheet created, not observed in survey responses from U.S. business institutions. Look to the household survey for a far better reflection of employment accuracy. The divergence began in the early Biden years. It was engineered. What we need to know is why they did this. And I think we know why. They did this on purpose. For what reason? To bring us into the Great Reset. Remember, they wanted the old system to collapse, to bring us into the new central bank digital currency. And this is what they're planning worldwide. This is why they pushed COVID, because their entire plan, yes, was to override the election and then keep the entire world shut down for at least 10 years or so, to collapse the entire system, reduce the population. This was their plan. So basically, the entire labor market, everything that they've told us, is one gigantic lie. So think about it. For 3 years straight, they pretty much lied. They made up the job numbers. And the Fed went off of this data. They went off the fake GDP numbers. They went off the fake inflation numbers. They went off the fake job numbers. And they were trying to convince us that everything was fine. I mean, all the PhDs in the Fed, they had no clue what was going on. They had no idea that these numbers were made up, that it's all fake. They couldn't figure this one out. Does that make any sense whatsoever? They're the ones who are supposed to keep the U.S. in full employment and make sure that the value of the currency doesn't decline. That's their mandate. And they couldn't figure this one out when everyone else could. Think about that for a second. Does that make any sense whatsoever? Absolutely not. It means it was a coordinated effort. It means this was completely and utterly planned. And this is why Biden made it a point to say, I'm handing off a very strong economy to President Trump, because he knew it was a disaster. And think about what Trump has done right now. He's basically reversed everything that they did. And now we're on a trajectory to have an incredible economy. Remember, the experts, every single time, they're always wrong. Peter Sayong, PhD, put this out and said, the experts were wrong again with a blockbuster jobs report that beat every metric. Private payrolls up 172,000. Wages up 5% annualized. U6 jobless down 600,000. Unemployment rate back down to 4.3%. Smallest federal workforce since 1966. And think about it. The tariffs, they didn't cause inflation. The tariffs are continually bringing in billions and billions of dollars. If you include that with the investments, it's trillions of dollars. And all the talk about tariffs causing inflation was fake, phony, and false. Does anyone see it? Remember, the inflation that people have seen is from the Biden administration, because even when you bring it back to 2%, it's cumulative. So the inflation that you've experienced was really from Biden. And what Trump did was he countered all of this by leveling off inflation and bringing down fuel prices. Now he's going to be bringing down interest rates, and soon he's going to be giving the buying power back to the people, which is going to counter the inflation. Because again, he's doing all this because eventually what he's going to do is pay down the debt, which will then bring back the buying power to everyone. But in the beginning, you can counter what the central bank has done over a long period of time by lowering fuel prices, removing the tax burdens on the people, and then slowly but surely pay off the debt. And you can see this is exactly what Trump is doing. And now he's bringing his people. He has a nominee that he's nominating, Kevin Warsh, and he is now going to suggest to the Federal Reserve in what should be done. And at the same time, what is Scott Bessent doing? He's basically floating the idea that the investigation into Jerome Powell should be done with the Senate Banking Committee, and they should probe Jerome Powell instead of using the DOJ. Now, the question is, why would he do this? Why would he do this instead of having the DOJ do this? Well, once again, it's all about optics. Plus, Trump wants his nominee confirmed. By routing the probe through the Senate Banking Committee, it positions the inquiry as a standard congressional oversight of the Fed instead of potentially escalatory criminal investigation. This helps de-escalate tensions between the executive branch and the central bank, avoiding perceptions of polarization or overreach that could disrupt financial markets or institutional stability. Interesting. The proposal could serve as an off-ramp for senators like Tom Tillis, who has been withholding support for Federal Reserve nominees amid the DOJ probe. Clearing this hurdle would allow stalled nominations to proceed, enabling the administration to advance its economic agenda more smoothly. And think about it. When they start probing into the Federal Reserve and they see certain criminal activity, could this then push for maybe subpoenas? Could they order documents? Could they go a little bit deeper? Can they look and see what's going on and say, listen, something's happening here. We found incredible amount of irregularities, and we are calling now for an audit of the Federal Reserve. Could this be done? Most likely, yes. But we'll have to see how this all plays out. But you can see what Trump is doing. He's transitioning us from the old system into the new. And every step of the way, he's making sure that he doesn't disrupt the markets. Why? Because, yes, could he easily say, listen, we're getting rid of the central bank. We are now shifting over to the tariff system. And when the new Congress comes in, we're just going to shut down the Federal Reserve and shift everything. How would that work out on the world stage? It wouldn't work out that well. Number one, he needs a system that can compete with the Federal Reserve. He needs a system where we can actually slowly transition over to, and he needs to make sure that people's wealth, their wealth isn't destroyed. So slowly but surely, Trump is doing this, and he has to make sure that he maintains optics along the way, and he doesn't spook the markets. And this is why he's taking this approach, I do believe, because in the end, he's going to have the central bank exactly where he wants it. Because again, he wants the leverage. He wants the strength. So if he moves the people off of the central bank system, and when I say move the people off the central bank system, I mean he removes the income tax from the people, and he has the tariff system paying for the income tax. And he continually brings in currency from outside of this country. Instead of borrowing from the central bank, he's weaning us off of the central bank system slowly but surely, which means that people aren't enslaved by the central bank anymore, which means people are going to see that their lives are that much better. And you're going to see gold, you're going to see silver, you're going to see Bitcoin start to skyrocket because people are going to start to realize that, wait a minute, I have this buying power. I'm no longer paying income tax. We're no longer borrowing from the Fed. The D's and the rest are having a huge amount of trouble because they can't fund any of their programs. We have the funding coming in externally, which is not causing inflation whatsoever, because the whole thing was one gigantic hoax that they wanted you to make. They wanted everyone to believe that it was tariffs, but it's actually the central bank that causes inflation. I mean, all you got to do is go back to 1971. Right now we have 3,000% inflation. So he's going to slowly do this, and people are going to realize that it's the central bank that is the problem. And once people realize this, people are going to say, you know something? As the currency continually loses value, we need real money. We need to basically hedge against what we're seeing right now. And I think this is what people are going to start to realize. And I think they've already started to realize this as they've seen silver and gold move up. And I do believe in the end, you're going to see Bitcoin, gold, silver, many other metals move up because everyone's going to start to realize that the Fed is the cause of all these problems. They cause inflation. They cause poverty. They cause everything that we've seen across the globe. And soon you're going to see everything change. And when people say, well, how could that possibly be? Well, think about it. As the currency continually loses value, what happens? You have to shift everything. Can you keep manufacturing in this country? No, you have to shift it to another country where people get paid pennies on the dollar, and then you ship it back with no tariffs to keep the illusion alive. If you do produce products in this country and you ship those products, can you use wooden crates? Can you use glass bottles? No, you have to look for material where you can ship things for far less because fuel costs have gone up, right? The cost of production has gone up because the value of the currency has declined. The shipping costs have gone up because the value of the currency has declined. So you have to find cheaper and cheaper ways to create things. They moved manufacturers out of this country because that was a cheaper way. They went to plastics because it's lighter, it's cheaper to ship. Then they caused the problem of plastics, which means then it caused health problems. And then people saw plastics in the brain. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. You got to find cheaper ways to make food, use chemicals. Because if you look at the food today, you have organic food and you have the chemicalized food. Which is more expensive? The organic, the freshly grown food is more expensive. Now think about it. If they didn't have chemicalized food, everything would be expensive. You see, they didn't want people to realize that something was going wrong. And this is why they kept the illusion alive. But now Trump is reversing all of this. And soon we're going to see that it was the Fed that was the problem. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.